My name is Junichiro Ishii, a Japanese artist living in Praha. And before Praha, I used to live in France. And my art activities start from site-specific work, but I'm trying to develop this site-specific idea for more kind of cultural-specific artwork. It's not only geographical site-specific work, but more take into account ground condition of the visited site. And I'm very interested in this activity because since I'm a foreigner, somewhere where I went, I always have to face on some curious reality. Like some usual things for local people is very unusual for me. So my creative activities start from that point, this gap feeling. Something usual for you, but something unusual for me. Then, since I don't have domain knowledge, I have to boost up my lacked information by using my imagination. And through this process, there's some ideas comes up. Then I try to visualize this feeling by using my work. I worked in different countries, and then here in Košice, I made one installation last year in Czech Republic, and this is kind of a developed version of the former work. Public space in Czech Republic or Slovakia was not really for public. Like a public space, literally public space is public for public, like people speak on opinion or public topics freely. But according to one Czech guy, public space during communism time in Czech Republic was not really public. The place was more like people watching each other, like checking or like spying sometimes. So I don't know if it was true or not, but this kind of voice was very interesting for me. And then the guy told me that often the real public talks happen in behind of the door. So like people didn't talk public topics in the public space, but go back and then close the door and then start to talk about public topics. So it was a very interesting story for me. Then I decided to use a door for my work. So the work in Czech Republic was just simply one door with a peephole. Like you have a lens and then you can see inside, and there is something you could see. This was my former work. And then in Slovakia, I start to ask people about Slovakian culture and traditions, or I try to know more like Slovakian people. But because of this season, like I stay here from October until December, and in the middle of November, you had a kind of revolution memorial day. So many topics was also in that point, like during the communism time, what happened during communism time, or like what happened in the revolution day, or so again like this discussion, this topics subject come back to me like behind the door. So again I decide to use this sign or metaphor or symbol, door. Then I'm making this installation, which is actually 12 times bigger than the last work. This work can be kind of material to communicate with the people. So I'm thinking my artwork is my communication tool. If I cast this topic, people maybe react, then I can hear more stories. But the same action, this work already talking about this subject. So for me it's more, it make easier to reach to people. Through the work, I can listen more story what happened, and then this story gives me another inspiration too. My first impression of Košice was I had one idea what I wanted to do in here, but that idea didn't work because Košice, I wanted to collect more garbages on the street or something, but Košice was very clean. actually very well organized. My first impression was outside and inside is really strictly divided. Like I cannot really smell people's everyday life from outside. Like even when I go to a restaurant or bar, for example, like even they have a nice cozy space inside, I cannot imagine from outside because the wall is very strong and door is very big and strong. When I go back to Asia, the people's life space, like private life space and public space is, I think, more closer, more. There's not so strong border between private space and the public space. But somehow I felt here the private space and the public space is really well divided. I hope people enjoy the work by themselves, so I don't actually want to talk too much about the work, but I'm thinking to make a small trick on the door and then people can see inside of the installation. I'm really looking forward to talking with people during the opening, and hopefully I can know more about Košice people, Košice culture, and mentality maybe.